Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, Christian pastor Simps. That's a massive L. I've been going to this church here in Birmingham, Alabama. I won't name the church, but it would be fairly easy to find. It's a big church with a bunch of different locations, and it's a nice place, and there's nice people. And I'm here in town for 3 months or something like that, so I'm looking for a church to go to where I can hopefully meet some people here that are local, that are cool to hang out with, and do some networking and that kind of thing. And because it's Valentine's Day, this church is like got this thing going on where they're talking about like what your marriage should be like, and like what kind of sex you should have, and all that type of stuff. And holy shit, bro. They're just preaching simpery. And it's fascinating how it's actually the 180 degree inverted opposite of what the Bible actually tells people to do. And it's this slippery, slimy reinterpretation where like you get a guy who's like an older guy with some salty white hair that goes up in a decent suit, and it's like they put him up on a stage and they give him all this respect and everything, and it's like, man, it's like a cult type of shit. And this guy goes up on the stage and tells you that the Bible doesn't say what it means, and it doesn't mean what it says. It's wild. So they have this gynocentric interpretation of the Bible. And shout out to Paul Elam. If you don't know who Paul Elam is, check him out. He's got a website. He's got a YouTube channel. He's like, I believe, an Orthodox Christian guy. And he's a really, really smart dude. From what I've gathered from the videos of his that I've watched, and from the articles of his on his website, like his blog or whatever that I've read, he worked in like a psychological type of capacity with like drug addicts and things like that for a long time, like a couple decades, in trying to, provide them with some therapy. And he's come to the conclusion that this is a real problem, this gynocentric interpretation of the Bible. And what I've found is this really goes on a lot in these Protestant Christian churches. I don't know about the Orthodox Church. I've never been to an Orthodox church. I can't speak on that. But I can speak on what goes on in these Protestant churches. I grew up in Protestant churches. My father was a pastor. His father was a pastor. Between the two of them, they put in close to 80 years of service in the church organization. Whatever that means at this point, I guess, is debatable. But yeah, I'm very familiar with what goes on in those organizations and how they operate and what their message is to people, specifically men, and most often young men. And it's fucking nuts. It's totally crazy. So if any of you haven't heard the word gynocentric before, what does that mean? Okay, well, that means their whole thing is they interpret the Bible based on not protecting, but it's actually destroying women. But they say that they're trying to keep women happy. They're like, if you're a guy, fuck you. Basically, their message is to you, if you're a man, you should wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and be like, fuck you, fuck your dreams, fuck your image of righteousness. You should proudly and boldly enter into slavery of all kinds. And if you have any questions whatsoever about this directive, you are evil and you should be punished. And I'm here to tell you, that's fucking satanic. And if you're going to a church where they're telling you that being a man means that you are supposed to simp for women, then what I have to tell you about that is that's not a church, okay? That's a tax evasion operation. That's a money laundering operation. And you would be amazed to find out how many Protestant churches could be considered nothing but a tax evasion scam. Okay? If they're telling you to get married to these hoes that aren't virgins, okay, do yourself a favor. Take it from me. I've been married 2 times, all right? I've been divorced 2 times. And I didn't initiate either one of those divorces. Now, I would say my first wife, when I was 21 and she was 24, she was a what you would refer to as a bad bitch, okay? She was an ex-stripper that had quit stripping, had a child from somebody else. That guy was in jail for violent crime. And so I was Captain Save-A-Ho, right? Because she was a bad bitch. On a scale of 1 to 10, she's like an adjustable 7. She was Italian, dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes, tatted up, stripper style, super hot, but wouldn't really be considered like an upper 8 or 9 or a 10 because she's all tatted up and she has all this fucking baggage and all that type of shit. Check out my video about why we date strippers. It's because it's easier. It's not because they're hot. It's not because they're going to give you the kind of sex that you fantasize about. That has nothing to do with it. The reason that we put strippers on is because it's easier. It's because they're fucking dumb. It's because they have no capability for maintaining any kind of high ground in the relationship because they're so fucked up from the start. So it's really a weak move on a man's part. It's not like it's not a flex at all to put a stripper on. It's actually a huge exposure of how weak you are. I didn't get it, okay? I was 21. I'm 45 now, all right? But at the time, and you can say whatever the fuck you want about how I look and shit, I've been able to operate with women way beyond my sexual market value level, mostly because of my mouthpiece game and my overall attitude where I don't fucking take shit from nobody in general. If you don't have some really hyper successful type of thing going on with your situation where you are so instantaneously putting yourself in a position where I can respect you without having to talk to you for more than like 30 fucking seconds, then you're not getting shit from me. And you're probably going to automatically put yourself below me and learn from me and what I have going on instead of me learning from you and what you have going on. That combined with the fact that most men can't fight their way out of a fucking wet paper bag, and I spent, 30 fucking years beating the dog shit out of people and getting paid tons of fucking money to teach people how to do that. That alone puts me in a category with women that are aware of that, way up, not down, but way up. All that being said, You cannot expect any respect of any kind from a woman that you are simping for. She will not be capable of providing you with that because you don't respect yourself. And so if you're going to a church where they're telling you to simp for chicks, especially these chicks in the church that are not virgins, holy shit, bro. That's not a church. That's a dude running a tax evasion scam. And it's so easy. It's so easy. That dude that runs that church is just a pussy he doesn't have what it actually takes to operate in the black market and actually scam people. He wants to operate in this gray market area where he pretends that he's on the white market, but he's really scamming people, and he doesn't have to pay any taxes from his operation because it's classified as like a 501c3 church. Do yourself a favor and look into all the things that a 501c3 operation has to agree to in order to be provided with that tax, evasion path. It's pretty fucking clear that that's not a church. So anyway, most of these dudes, including the dude running the church that I've been going to here recently, they have no experience whatsoever dating any women that are modern women, or they haven't dated anybody in 30 years. Now, I would really be surprised if this particular pastor of this church I've been checking out is like cheating on his wife and banging out some of these hoes in the congregation. I do not think that's the case, and I'm really fucking good at being able to tell whether or not that's happening or not. So I'm fairly confident in saying this dude doesn't cheat on his wife. This guy actually thinks that he can say this shit to people, and that there two things. Number one, he thinks it's actually like this works, and he actually thinks you're dumb enough to go along with it. He's like giving everybody this gynocentric interpretation of the Bible, where he references all these Bible verses where a woman is approaching a man for sex, and the man shuts it down and is like, oh yeah, I love you and I want to be with you and I have all this passion for you, but we got to get married first and do the right thing so that we honor God. Okay, cool, man. There's some truth to that. If you're a Christian, she's a Christian, everybody's trying to honor God, and you're actually trying to honor God, then yeah, you should be honoring God. But if this chick is trying to fuck you, she's not trying to honor God. She's trying to honor herself. And she's trying to ingratiate herself into your life, offering you sex. Most often, it's because she wants access to your resources. Okay? Chicks don't go out and try to fuck poor losers. Ever. They don't do that. Okay, I hope you get it, right? So if the church you're going to is telling you to marry these hoes that aren't virgins, don't do it. Take my word for it. Don't do it. If the guy running the church is telling you to simp, and he has no experience dating any of these hoes or anything in the last 30 years, don't do it. Don't simp at all, under any circumstances. It would be a better investment of your time to get that guy in a one-on-one type of situation, take him out for a cup of coffee or go play golf or whatever these fucking people do, and explain to him how fucking stupid he is and how he has no business even touching the subject of telling men how to approach women in this modern day and age. And that's not different from what goes on in his church. Okay? These women in these church are no different than these women that don't go to the church. If anything, in my experience, the women that don't go to the church are going to treat you more fairly than the women who do go to the church. And that's a whole nother video that I'll definitely make. But there's other people that will corroborate what I'm saying here, and they've got, I would say, similar amounts of experience that I have, and probably have read up on this a similar amount that I have, and so people in that category will come to this conclusion very, very, very regularly, and that is that a lot of the women in these churches are actually worse than the women that don't go to the churches. It's almost like now, if you're like a Christian dude, you're better off like picking up a hot chick that doesn't really go to church and isn't really super Christian, and then like just influencing her with your honorable way of operating in the world because you believe in God. If you can influence her with that and then get her to kind of join your team as far as what you're doing with your spiritual situation, that's probably safer for you and more fruitful and better in every way than scooping up one of these chicks from the church that's been, banged out by tons of dudes and now wants to go to church and pretend that they have some type of purity to offer some dude from the church. Obviously, not all women are like that. Obviously, not all. Not all women, not all the women at church are hoes. Not all, okay? And not all the churches are filled with simps, and not all the pastors at the churches are preaching to you to simp. But there is a very large amount of these Christian preachers that are simps that are trying to tell you to simp. And there's a very large amount of these women that go to these churches that have hoed around and that are hoes now and that are hoeing, and they're like hoeing for Jesus. This shit's wild. So yeah, why would they do this? Well, there's a couple really, really good, really simple, really effective reasons. One of them is that they were taught this. So they're just on autopilot, man. They're just doing what they grew up knowing, what they were shown by the other men that were the leadership positions in their life as they were a young man and they were growing up. And then they're following in that pathway and they're trying to do a good job. And then the other reason is their income is tied to the church. And the church overall income is tied to the women that go to the church. So women in America have vast greater participation in debt than men do. That doesn't exclude women that go to church. Women that go to church have way more debt than men. And they will spend money on stuff that they can't even afford to spend money on. And they'll give money to the church. And so the church gets a lot of their money from women. And it may be the wife who's just like writing huge checks to the church because they told her she owes them 10% of her husband's income and all that type of shit, which is very debatable and is a whole nother video that I'll probably make sometime here in the near future. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it doesn't take a rocket mathematician to fucking figure out that if the church is full of chicks, they got to preach to these chicks to get them to keep coming. So they're going to tell the guys to simp to the girls. And then they want the girls to give them money. Newsflash. These chicks are in debt already. They don't know what to do with money. Of course they're just going to give this dude money who's up on a stage like in the business of telling dudes to simp to chicks at church. Like, they're going to pay for that. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop at all. So just be aware of it. It's a massive conflict of interest. But most businesses, what you'll find is most businesses are going to operate with massive conflicts of interest almost all the time. It's your job to figure out what is actually happening and make wise decisions and not be led by, number one, your inability to control your sexual desires. That makes you a bitch. Number two, you don't want to be led by the fear of scarcity, okay? If you're a dude, which almost all of you people watching my videos are dudes, if you're a dude, You have to know there's more of them than there is of us, which means the odds are better for you than you think they are. Okay, so if women are weaker than you and women are dumber than you and there's more of them than you, then it's like shooting fish in a barrel, homie. You have nothing to worry about. If you approach a woman and she rejects you for whatever reason, good. You didn't want her anyway. She's doing you a favor. She doesn't even know you. She's just giving you information. So just take it as that. And keep it pushing. It's no problem. So let me be the bearer of good news. There's more of them than there are of you. Okay? So put your running shoes on and get your speed up and make moves. I guess the moral of the story is I think it's a failure to just be a loner. I don't think that's a good way to operate going forward. I mean, not 100% of the time. There's a lot of times when it's better for you to be on your own, and it's better for you to just do what you need to do, and you don't need to have all kinds of people and all kinds of distractions fucking up what you have going on. Okay, cool. But it's also not good to just be a fucking loner. And whether or not you decide to have children and continue your bloodline of your family is on you. It's on your shoulders. So there's been an uncountable number of generations of men who came before you in your bloodline that decided that they weren't going to bitch out. Okay? It's been studied and it's been determined that 60% of men that have ever existed in the world never had children. 60%. So only 40% of us are going to pass on our genetics to the next generation. Only 40%. So if you want your bloodline to continue, you need to be in the 40%. What does that mean? That means you have to outwork the other 60% that are going to bitch out. All right. That's not that hard. That doesn't mean you got to be the top 1%. It's great if you are. I think you should try for that. I think you actually should study and figure out exactly what that is and then shoot for that. But the good news is, even if you fail miserably at that, you're probably going to be way better off and fall into that 40% that does end up passing on your genetics. And all of your ancestors, whether you believe in heaven or evolution or a combination of the two, or something completely different, right? Any number of spiritual things that you could choose to actually put your chips into. Cool, man. Your ancestors want you to keep this shit going. And then there's plenty of men out there that don't want you to. There's a bunch that want to see you fail. They want to take you out sometimes. Most of them won't. Most of them won't even try. Most of them will just stand on the sidelines and hate. And they won't even really do anything. They'll just say shit. It's so weak. It's so lame. It's so easy. Pay them no attention. At all. I mean, if you have to, spit on the ground in their direction, okay. If you have to laugh in their face, okay. But, wasting energy, wasting calories, wasting time. The most important thing you have is time. The most important thing. So do something with it, right? Don't waste your time simping for chicks. It's been said a million times, and it's worth saying again. If you actually like a chick, the fastest way to make sure she doesn't like you is to simp. Fastest way. If you treat her like shit, she's going to like you more than if you simp. I'm not telling you to treat her like shit. What I am telling you is, do not simp. Like the video, subscribe, comment, holler at me in the DMs or whatever if you need clarification on any of this stuff. If you want to disagree with me, if you want to get on a video and go back and forth and try to shoot me down with whatever you think is wrong with what I'm saying, I would love to have that conversation with you. And if you're a simp, stop it. All we do is win. Keep it up.